Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we're in the shop today. What we're going to be doing today is starting the next video for the Corvette. That's basically going to be wrapping up anything that's kind of next that needs to happen. We actually did a little bit of a road trip today. We went up to two places. One was PCM of North Carolina, and the second was After Dark Speed up in Mooresville, North Carolina as well. They're about 8 minutes apart, something like that. And we went to PCM because here is my stock ECU, so the 2005 E40 ECU. I had this listed on eBay a number of months ago. I sold it, I shipped it, the guy received it. He said it didn't work. He said basically he couldn't connect to it. And so I was like, well, that's great. And so he did a eBay return. eBay basically gave him all of his money back. I lost about $60 in that transaction. Basically $30 shipping there and back. That's pretty much where I lost my money on that one. And I basically had what I thought was a paperweight. I was like, well, that's a dead computer, and I've kind of ignored it for the last bit. But since I was going to Mooresville to go get a suspension bushing, we'll talk about that in a second, I stopped by PCM, I spoke with Mark, and I was like, hey, can you plug into this ECU? I know you guys have a bench harness, and just see if you can connect to it, see if you can write and read to it. And he was like, yeah. So it took him less than 5 minutes. So Mark was able to connect, read, and write to it. So yeah, we have a good ECU using HP tuners. So I don't know what the buyer was using to try to connect to this thing, but using HP tuners, we were able to connect to it without issue. So that is back up on eBay and back up on Facebook. Yeah, I even included in the description, fully tested, working, tested by PCM North Carolina. And, hopefully that thing's good to go. So that was the first place we went to. The second place was After Dark Speed. We've got a ton of parts from Ryan on here. And I was actually missing this little metal bushing. I don't know where it went. Basically, when we dropped the rear transaxle, this bushing disappeared. I don't know where it went. And I looked into my grid on the floor. I looked outside. I looked everywhere I had drugged that transaxle. I couldn't find it. So stopped by Ryan's for a bushing. He was able to provide me one with no issue. And so Ryan gave me a little bit of an updated shop tour because I haven't probably been in his shop in almost 3 years. So went into his office. He had a ton of trophies from Optima, from Grid Life, and all that stuff. So I asked him about his coilovers because currently I have the BCDR series, and I think they're okay for the street, but as soon as you start doing any real track stuff like road course, autocross, stuff like that, I don't think that's where those things shine. And I'll be honest, they kind of ride kind of rough. Even though I have them either at full soft or like medium. I think that's where we left them a while ago. So yeah, I was talking to him about his setup. He's got a couple of different setups. What his most popular kit is, it's a Viking shock body that's custom valved to his specs. And then he has his own upper and lower mounts as well as his own spring specifications. So he has a bunch of custom stuff for his setup, but once we get the car up and running and we do get more serious on the driving aspect of this thing, I might hit him up for a set of those because he is local, and he would basically, I think I would install them and just have him tune them, level them, do the four corner balancing and all that because, yeah, I really don't want to be doing that. So that might be something that we do, and we were able to get the missing bushing that we need. So yeah, that might be a future mod. The next thing that we've recently picked up was a module programmer. You guys will see this is from Topdon. This is their R-Link X3. This basically goes between a laptop and the OBD2 port. That's what the end of this cable is. And this will basically allow you to connect to the stock car. It'll allow you to reprogram the modules because basically what we have now, we have a bunch of mismatched parts in different years. The BCM, I think, was out of a 2013 ZR1, so there's some stuff we need to go in there and disable. The OnStar module, the XM module, there's a couple other things in there, the radio. What I'm planning on doing is reprogramming everything to a 2011 because that's what the wire harness came out of. So we'll reprogram everything to a 2011, and then when we get the Haltech in, we're going to have to probably do a little fiddling there. I don't know if I'm going to need a stock ECM. We might. I really hope we can avoid having to buy a stock ECM, but they're not that much money for the E38s. Then we have to buy a couple credits for that and flash a tune. That might be something that we have to do. I just don't know yet. But yeah, so we bought this tool, and I'm glad I looked because the price on these have dropped. When I was looking at the previous version, I think it was maybe it was the R-Link X2. That was actually almost $300. Then I happened to be reading the Amazon link, and there was like, oh, there's a new version available. I clicked on that. This was 150 bucks. So I was like, huh, half the price, same thing, same company. Yeah, let's go ahead and order that. So I ordered that. It came in a couple days from Amazon, and this will allow us to do two things. One is the module reprogramming, like we were saying. The second thing is this will actually act as a Tech 2 as well, so we can also use this as a diagnostic tool if we need it. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but if we need it, we do have the hardware for it. We don't have the software. And basically how that goes is you can buy a VIN number through the GM Tech Connect thing, and that will allow you to reprogram any module in the car. That's one fee. I think it's like 48 bucks for a year, 24 months, something like that. So that's just the module programming. If you want to buy the diagnostic stuff, I think it's like a 3-day pass was like 50 bucks, something like that. So you can have the different software that we're going to need for that. We can have the module program. We have the diagnostic side of it too. So the module, relatively cheap, 150 for that, and I think 50 bucks per VIN. It's kind of like a credit for HV tuners. So that's the first thing, and then the diagnostic side of it, which we might need in the future. I don't know. You know, we can buy the pass for that. So yeah, so that kind of leads to this empty hole right here, and I have a huge update on that. And that huge update is basically we're going to be replacing the entire ECU with a Haltech Nexus. I think it's an S4 or S5 or R5. I never know. That sounds like a cell phone name. So yes, we do have a Rebel LS still in the box. I don't think we're going to use any of that kit. We're probably going to use that for the engine dyno, but that's going to be about it. Then I think I'm going to sell that kit. I'd reach out to Tuned by Shawn, and honestly, the best way to reach him is just to call him. I've tried email, I've tried Instagram, I've tried Facebook Messenger. It's like Shawn would receive the messages, but he's so busy, like he wouldn't know which one to reply back to. And so I finally just decided to call him. I told him, I'm like, hey, I've got like 3 or 4 inputs and 2 outputs. And basically it was the 2 fuel pump outputs. The inputs were going to be the fuel pressure sensor, the E85 sensor, and the third one was going to be the coolant temp / pressure sensor. And the deal with the Rebel LS, why we kind of decided to go with the Nexus instead of the Rebel, is because we would be able to control all the inputs, so those 3 or 4 sensors, but the outputs I would be limited because I think there's only a couple of outputs on there. And the one thing he said was, he's like, yeah, we could probably control one fuel pump, but not the second one, because a number of the inputs and outputs are actually used by the CAN system. Because there's an interpreter that we're basically buying that will communicate with the Corvette software, the factory, and then there's the Haltech CAN, and that all needs to connect via CAN bus, and they basically speak different languages. The other thing with the Rebel LS, I was either going to have to put a switch in to engage or disengage the reverse lockout, or I was going to have a check engine light. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely don't want to switch when I'm trying to go in reverse. This thing isn't a sequential where you have to flip something. I was like, nah, I don't want that. Then the check engine light, I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't want that either. And then another difference between the Rebel LS and the Nexus is basically fueling. On the Rebel LS, it's basically like HP tuners. They add a table for the E85, fueling, and it basically interpolates between, the 93 and E85 and makes adjustments there. With the Nexus, you actually have 2 different base maps. One will be 93, one would be E85, and the ECU will automatically, once it detects ethanol, it'll make that switch for you. There's no buttons or anything. So you can have a completely customized E85 tune on there, and then a completely customized 93 tune on there, and there's no difference that, the computer's not going to care. You're going to carry both of those fuel maps on there. So, yeah, so I talked to Shawn for about 20 minutes, and I basically was like, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and make an order. And he said, hey, text me your info. I will message you and send you an invoice. And so, yeah, within a couple of hours of talking with Shawn, I pretty much weighed the pluses and minuses of both options of whether using the Rebel LS versus the Nexus. And I decided just to order the Nexus because if you guys want to order the secondary wideband O2, that kit's like another $300 or $400. There may even be input-output limitations on the Rebel LS with that because that might even use up more resources. I didn't even price that out. So, you know, looking at the kit of the Rebel LS plus his adapter harness plus the secondary wideband O2 sensor, you know, we were only a couple $100 price difference. And by calling him, I saved even a little bit more money. It just made sense to go ahead and buy the Nexus kit. So, yeah, we've got that on order. I ordered that the Friday before Thanksgiving, so a week prior to Black Friday, and hopefully we get that here in the next month or so. But yeah, so that is the huge update on the plug and play kit. Finally spoke with Shawn, we ordered it. And so yeah, that's finally on order, and that will basically fill in the missing link between the Haltech USB cable right here and the stock E38 wiring right here. And yeah, we'll get that thing put into place and hopefully be able to start to fire this thing up. And for the electronics right now, I almost don't want to mess with any of that because we're missing a bunch of parts. You know, we're missing an engine. We have a fuel system that's basically open. Yes, I've got those red, orange plugs and everything, but if you turn that car on and hit that with 58 or 60 PSI of fuel, I'm sure that that would just go spraying everywhere. So obviously we don't want that to happen. And then with the electrical system, we're missing the ECU, obviously. On the engine side of it, we have nothing plugged in, plus there's the grounds. There's grounds for the starter, for the ECU, for this box. None of that stuff is hooked up. And I'm not saying you'd fry stuff, but you're definitely missing some grounds. And at this point, I'm not really in a rush because, like I said, we don't have the ECU, we don't have the engine, and you know, we're missing a bunch of stuff. So, and to update you guys on the rear suspension, as you guys can see, we do have the rear wheel back in. So we've got the axle nut, the Nordlock washers. I think we showed you that earlier in the video. So those have been installed on both the driver and the passenger side. And the reason we have the center cap removed is because I have no way of tightening these axle nuts without the car being on the ground, because you can't really put a screwdriver between the brake rotor and the caliper, because obviously with the carbon ceramic rotor you'll break it. So we're basically gonna have to set the car on the ground, put weight on it, then we'll be able to torque these down to 118 foot-pounds. And FYI, they did change the axle nut size from 33 millimeter to 36 millimeter. So you guys might have to go buy a new socket if you update to the latest Nordlock washer and the axle nuts. Then I do have an update on the inside of the car. That is going to be the HVAC controls for the C7 seats. You guys will remember that I had a prototype put in the last video. Well, I finally actually have the finalized designs. So this was printed by my friend Steve. You guys will see a little video of that printing right here. And my buddy Steve actually printed off 5 of these for me out of the carbon fiber PTEG. 3 of them were kind of fails because when he tried to lift them off the tray, they actually started to snap in a couple points. So 3 are kind of a prototype, and then the last 2, one was like a 90% copy, and then the other one is the one good copy that we have. So what I did was I actually took my little heating soldering iron and I just heated up the spots where it looked like it might potentially crack. So I just put a little bit of heat on the exterior here, so you'll see some there, you'll see some there. If we flip this over to the other side, you'll see a little spot there. And that might have been about it. Maybe there's one on the inside. Yeah, right here. So little spot there. So, you know, they hadn't completely cracked, but it looked like it might be a potential failure in the future. So I decided to go ahead and take the one that was the 90% copy and kind of just do all of our prototyping on this one. And you will see basically where the button switches go. You will see that I sanded that. I sanded that with 80 grit, 120, 220, 320, 400, and 600 grit. And I think we're going to go ahead and just do a test paint on here. I've got some SEM trim black that we're going to paint these 2 parts with. If we need primer, I want to figure this out now. And so we'll paint it with just the SEM trim black And if it looks like we still have some stuff to fill in, you know, some more body working to do, we'll then go ahead, sand that down, prime it, then paint it again. And that will just help us further along with this prototyping process. And when we finally get something good, we'll go ahead and do everything again on our final copy here. So this is the final copy. I do have to break some more of the printed material off, you know, especially in the back here. But yeah, so it's good to have extras, and I appreciate Steve for helping me out with A, the video, and B, all these prototypes. And another little modification we're going to do is help bring the car into the 21st century a little bit. We're actually going to delete the cigarette lighter and replace it with a USB and a USB-C charger. So you guys can see this right here. This is the broken prototype, and you guys can see a USB-C on the top and a regular USB on the bottom. The bottom is actually going to be a pass-through to connect to the Haltech, so I won't have a loose cable in the interior. All you're going to have to do is open this little compartment, plug in with your laptop, and then the very back of this will pass along to the laptop, and that's just one way to kind of eliminate extra wires and stuff hanging out. And then for the USB-C connector that we just showed you, I picked up this little adapter here off Amazon. It is basically a down converter, if that's what we want to call it. It'll take the 12 volt and convert it out to 5 volt. And that's kind of basically the standard for cell phones, GoPro, the camera that we're filming with, your iPhone, your Android. All of them basically use 5 volts. So we'll go ahead and have a charger for that. So, and how we've mocked this up so far is we have this washer here on the outside. We've got the adapter from Amazon. On the back, we've got another washer, and then we've got the little nut that screws into the back of that. And this basically sandwiches the USB-C, the USB-A, and the pass-through here to the center console. Yeah, the washers are a little bit of an industrial look, but I really couldn't think of another way to sandwich this adapter and our new 3D printed piece, because if it was the OEM piece, this is a little bit of a thicker plastic. I think we could have just ran it without any washers on here, but with this being a 3D printed piece, we don't want to put too much pressure on it, and sandwiching it seems to be the best way. So, all right guys, we have completed our first prototype, and there's a number of changes we're going to do with the final piece. You guys can see we have the switches, so the cold and the hot. We have that installed on both sides. You can also see our USB and USB-C pass-through. This will all go into the car. And basically what we're going to change is, if you guys can see the finish on this paint, we just did a quick sand job on this prototype because I knew I wasn't going to spend the time to make this one perfect. Just wanted to learn what we need to do for the real piece we're going to use. You guys can see all those texture lines right there at the top. You can see a little bit on the bottom, but not as bad. Same thing over here. The lines at the top need more work. Lines on the bottom, again, not so bad. And basically the lesson learned was I need to take a piece of sandpaper, basically fold it in half, and try to get that into that edge line. And I've actually already done that on the final piece. That is actually drying right now. You guys can see we just put a layer of primer on there. That is our second layer of primer. So basically sanded it up to 600, hit it with primer, sanded it with 400 and 600, hit it with primer. We're going to give that 24 hours to dry, because as you can see, my winter hat, or a toboggan if you live down in the south. For me, living up north, it was always a toboggan as a sled, not a winter hat. But yeah, anyway. So that needs to dry for 24 hours because it was 25 degrees this morning, and I think the high today was like 43. So yeah, not a very warm day down here in North Carolina, but you know, we are taking this slowly. We are letting it dry properly. Now, I don't know how this is going to show up on the camera, but if you look at the finish on the stock piece up top, and you look at the SEM trim black, it is totally different. The factory piece is almost a gray color, and the SCM trim black is clearly a black, and also the sheen is different. So this has a more satin finish. This is more of a matte finish, if that makes sense. So the shade is wrong, and then the finish is wrong as well. And the one thing I did discover when looking at the stock piece, if you look at the bottom part, this is unpainted plastic. You guys can see that mask line. Then you guys can see this gray color, this gray, plus the finish is a different shade, like I said. I basically found two companies selling this online. One was Mid-America Motorworks out of Effingham, Illinois. We stopped there many years ago on the power tour on one of the Midwest tours that, you know, stopped in Central Illinois. So I've actually been to their facility, bought some stuff from them before. I've had no issues with that company. And then there was, I think it's either Top Flight Recreations or whatever, but that used to be called something else. I'll have to include that old name down below, but they were a terrible company for the Corvette world, and then they got bought out and renamed Top Flight something. But yeah, so I was like, nope, skipping that company, go with Mid-America Motor Works. And so we ordered some paint. I ordered it last night. That'll probably be a few days plus the holiday and the weekend. And so while we're waiting a couple days for that, the finished piece, we're probably going to end up sanding and painting that like probably 2 or 3 different times. When I mean paint, I mean prime. So sand it, prime it, sand it, prime it, sand it, and prime it. And then we're not going to sand it again. That last round of primer should be good for the top coat. So I think we've done this twice now. We sanded and primed it. We've done it twice. Tomorrow we will sand and prime it one more time. Then it should be ready for the top coat. All right, guys, I've made a lot of progress off screen on the center console update. And what that is, basically we have done all of the painting and prep work on the switches. My paint finally came in. This was actually a surprise from Mid-America Motor Works. I didn't know it was gonna be SEM brand. I've had very good luck with the SEM brand. But yeah, you guys can see the Mid-America Motor Works, part number 25140. Basically, if you read this, 05 to 13 ebony color coat. So this is good for metal, plastics. I don't know if this is good for cloth or carpet. It might be, but I definitely would have no problem using it on plastics because we had excellent results. So you guys will remember this one. This was our prototype. This was the SEM trim black. If you guys compare it, the sheens are totally different. We showed you that a little bit earlier. So we're gonna go ahead and actually kind of jump to the end, but I have been working on this for a couple hours today and pretty much a good chunk of this week. I went ahead and primed, I sanded this thing. You guys can see these end pieces, they're perfectly smooth. And if you look at the paint compared to the door, it's practically almost exactly the same. Now, mind you guys, this is a used door. There are some scratches on it. And this is at least 10 to 12 years old. So it's been quite used in the car and it's got some mileage on it, they say. So let's go ahead and open this up. You guys can see we have our cell phone charger to the right, also the USB pass-through. That's going to be for the Haltech. Then on the right and left, we have our seat heater control and the cooling, so you guys can see that. And then this centerpiece, you guys will see some fresh epoxy, that gray stuff right there. Well, I kind of broke the clips off trying to get this in and out several times, and I just ended up epoxying that to the door, and that's pretty much good to go. And then there's 2 more things I want to show you. One is going to be this little box right here. You guys can see that right there. That little box is actually the retaining clip for the door. So if we close it, you guys can hear that click, hear that unclick. So you guys will want to swap that out from the OEM piece to this 3D printed piece that you got. So you're gonna want to swap that little pin. And then you will see some carving. And the reason we cut this up is because, one, the door didn't fit. You guys can see we had to trim this up. You guys see that silver Sharpie there on the bottom. I did have to trim to get around this little cubby hole. And then right here, you guys can see this big slot there between the cubby hole and the 3D printed piece. That is for the wiring for our nitrous outlet little control panel. So when you open this up, that will open and then you'll reveal your switch panel right there. And that is going to be basically anything we want. We are removing the 2-step from the car. I think we're going to keep the line lock, and then the third one is our fan controller. Yeah, we could control that through the ECM with the Haltech, but you know, I like kind of having the manual switch without having to turn the car on. So that is another thing that we'll have in here. So yeah, that's kind of our finished product. And you guys can see this is the plug for one of the cigarette lighters. The wiring is going to be the same for both. You guys can see there is a red and a black wire there. I'll try to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you guys can see the red wire on the left, black wire on the right. We will simply cut that pigtail off, swap in the red wire for the adapter, black wire for the ground. We should be good to go. So cut this off, red to red, black to black. Wiring's pretty simple for that USB cell phone charger. And there you go, guys. A little bit of a beauty shot of the finished panel. We got all our switches installed. Obviously, we don't have the nitrous outlet little control panel. I just looked in the car, and I'll be honest, I have no idea where that is. It's sitting somewhere in this disassembled mess of a Corvette, couple engines and whatnot. So I will find that. I looked in both the car and my toolbox, couldn't find it. It's got to be somewhere. So we will eventually find that. We'll get that put back in here. We'll get it wired up. And so yeah, that is going to be a wrap on today's Corvette video. We kind of jumped around places and we did finish some stuff. Mostly this HVAC seat controller swap. Also the charger for the cell phone as well as the pass-through for the Haltech. And so I actually need to thank a couple people for helping wrap up this project. One is going to be David. He gave me a rapid prototype of the switches, see how they were going to look. And also got to thank Steve for the other prototype, the more finalized, and also the final product with this carbon fiber reinforced PETG. And it's pretty cool that, you know, with their help, we're able to get a finalized product. And also, we're able to get something that looks almost OEM. Obviously, you're going to tell that these switches are a little bit cheaper. They're not that expensive, to be honest. I think I saw them on Alibaba for about 15 bucks. But with a little bit of sweat equity, some sandpaper, primer, and then the final top coat, we're able to get this to look almost OEM. It matches the door here and also matches the navigation radio above it. So that's pretty cool. And also looking online, we were able to find that people did sell the interior paint color. So this ebony spray paint from Mid-America Motorworks works perfectly fine. So I am absolutely happy with that. We will go ahead and get this installed once we're finally ready for it, but we're not quite ready just yet. We're actually going to kick off the next video here in a bit. Basically, it's going to be shifting stuff. I think I complained in an earlier video about the shifter, so we got a whole new setup for that. So that will probably be the next video for the Corvette. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see that follow-up video with the TIC Performance parts, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I'm not sure what exactly we'll be able to get you links. I think you can buy this SEM color coat from Mid-America Motorworks on Amazon. If we can, we'll drop a link down below for that. If not, we'll give you a part number. Also, make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. We have a ton of used Corvette parts on there. Go down to the used parts, click on that, and go to my eBay store. And also check out the stickers, the merchandise, the t-shirts, also the SS parts. I think we got a couple more of those left around. Check all that out at the website, BonecrrusherSS.com. That's going to be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.